What's up, guys? All right, so this is episode 3, but in a lot of ways, um, we're going to be kind of starting fresh here because as part of the process in the first 2 episodes, I've learned a lot about what I need to hone in on. Now, I also don't want to trick anyone, right? And so if you're here just to see the attempts of gold transmutation, I figure out YouTube will give you a place to click. And that way, if you want to skip all this, you know, spiritual growth mumbo jumbo, you can hop right to the cool stuff. So, what you can expect if you continue this journey with me. Number one, we're going to be reviewing history, science, chemistry, quite specifically, also particle physics, quantum mechanics. So the prime concept here that we're talking about is transmutation. And this is from alchemy. All right. Alchemy is related to Hermeticism. And if you've never heard of Hermeticism or Hermetic religions, you've probably heard a few things. You've probably heard hermetically sealed. And hermetically sealed means something that's very difficult to open. Hermeticism as a religion does not discount any other religion. All right. It includes every religion, every belief system, because it is the examination of how everything connects. And so you can't separate anything out of Hermeticism. You can't go, there's Christianity and there's Hermeticism, okay? Hermeticism includes Christianity. It includes Buddhism. It includes Zoroastrianism. I mean, it includes everything because it's the examination of how everything interconnects. Hermeticism, which is based on the writings mainly of a philosopher known as Hermes Trismegistus, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but who cares? Maybe you do. But what it means was thrice great Hermes. Now, Hermes, if you don't know, was a Greek god. And Hermes has a lot of attributes. The other thing you've probably heard related to Hermeticism or Hermes is hermaphrodite, right? A hermaphrodite, obviously someone with both sexual organs. And alchemy, as it relates to Hermeticism, Hermeticism is a form of Gnosticism. And if you've heard the term agnostic, and understand that means it's a belief system based on the idea that you can't know anything that's not in the material world, and so it's saying I don't know. I don't feel like we can know, so I'm just going to live my life. And I think that philosophy, it's fine. I think it's the way perhaps it should be. But unfortunately, since we do have so many dogmatic religions and belief systems in the world, especially those that push their ideas onto others, this is where Hermeticism and Gnosticism, I think, come from. Gnosticism is, and there's probably a lot of conflicting viewpoints, but to me, it's simply the opposite of agnostic. It means maybe we can know, and so maybe it's worth investigating a little bit, right? Like the unknown, right? And alchemy is a relationship between what current science calls paranormal, supernatural, superstition. Science, to me, science is supposed to be open to any idea, right? If you can't disprove something, then it's possible. Now, if you limit yourself and go, well, there's no way we can prove this, and then you write it off, well, what is that based off of? Did you try to prove something, or did you just assume something, right? Because, science talks about astrology, and they frame it like astrology is your horoscope in your Sunday break paper. And that's not what astrology is. And I saw it written in the book I had that said, astrologers claim to, predict the future. And that's not accurate either, okay? Astrology is far more involved and far more, it's not about predicting the future. It's about examining the relationship between, heavenly bodies and motions and people. And you could say that, there's that planets and their motions don't affect humans. How do you know that? I mean, we have receptors that our senses, we've all learned that we have 5 senses, right? Sight, taste, smell, touch, and hearing. But, those are a good general idea. But, I mean, we have, in touch, we have pain receptors. We have sharp pain receptors, dull pain receptors, mechanoreceptors that just feel pressure, barometric receptors that feel, changes in pressure in the air, in the atmosphere. We have receptors that detect sunlight. We have far more receptors and far more senses, scientifically proven, than what we all commonly know. And so to say that we're not sensitive to the motion of the planets, considering we're on a moving planet with a moving moon going around it as we move around the sun with other, planets changing their proximity and location to us. If you look at this and go, there's no way a distant star 500,000 light years away can affect, a human personality, then that's one way to go, yeah, then you can write it off. But, these planetary bodies they're nearby. And, we don't know what their positions may inflict upon the human body, the human psyche. We don't know. To claim that we know is the most unscientific thing that I've ever heard. To just go, there's no way it's possible. That's not science. Science says test it. And I want to review whatever experiments were done in the beginning that claimed that things like alchemy and astrology were pseudosciences and that they were grounded in, superstition and things that didn't make sense from a scientific standpoint, right? Because I've seen too much to not give some credence to the possibility that, maybe there's some significance to these things that were followed for thousands of years before the scientific revolution. Just maybe. Now, I became a freelance writer when I was like 30. which I did for a little bit. I worked on some books on neurology. I did a lot of articles prior to that, and a range of topics. And I started to work on a novel. I always wanted to write a novel. And when I was doing research for the novel, it was kind of a sci-fi, Indiana Jones kind of historical idea. But I started to study the origins of civilization, and I got into, Greek mythology. And I'm writing this book at the same time that I'm working on, some books for a client on neurology. And so I was learning about neurology. I was learning about, anatomy and biology. And granted, it was, an overview, because the books I was writing were intended, to be understood by the layman. So it wasn't deep into like technical jargon. There was definitely some technical jargon, but I'm studying these things in conjunction. And as I'm studying them in conjunction, I start to notice peculiar synchronicities in ancient mythology and current science. One of the first ones was, I had heard of the classical elements, which were, in Greek, ancient Greece, it was the earth, air, fire, water, and ether. And as I'm studying for the neurology, I find that DNA is made out of 5 elements: carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and phosphorus. And I started to think about those elements, and I said, well, carbon's pretty similar to Earth. Oxygen can be described as fire, nitrogen as air, hydrogen as water. And so this quintessence, this 5th element, right, this ether, is left to phosphorus. And so phosphorus, as it turns out, was a Greek god, the dawn bringer, the light bringer, and his Roman counterpart was Lucifer, the bringer of light. And I'm 30 years old at this time. Now, I've heard of Lucifer. I've heard of Lucifer. I've heard of phosphorus. But I never knew that phosphorus was a Greek god. I never knew that his counterpart was Lucifer. It's like we know things like, Zeus and Saturn are counterparts. Hermes and Mercury are counterparts. But it's like we know that the Romans borrowed a lot from the Greeks and just put their own spin on it, right? But I mean, how is it not common knowledge that Lucifer was part of the Roman pantheon? That blew my mind. I'm like, I thought he was, from the Christian religion, right? The Hebrew religion, not the Roman one. And so then I started to think about the devil and devil iconography, right? And you've got the image that we all conjure up when I say the devil, right? You've got a horned, red demon with a pitchfork, and, maybe he's got the legs of a stag or a, just hooves, right? And we think of, hell, and then it's like when you study Greek mythology a little bit, it's like, okay, well, Mercury was associated with the color red. Hermes and Mercury's from Roman, study Roman, Greco-Roman mythology. There was the god Pan, who was like a goat, which, you know, the devil has a lot of those attributes. And then, you know, Poseidon with his trident is like a pitchfork. And then, of course, Hell and Hades are considered, you know, that's the translation. It becomes very apparent that these things were done intentionally, right? Like demonizing the pantheon was done intentionally. Like they, you know, the devil's just an amalgam of a bunch of different of the pantheon. All right, so just to go over where we're starting at here, and just to give you kind of an idea of just a few properties of some elements here, metallic ones specifically, for the most part. This right here is mainly copper. I know it doesn't look it, but it's mainly copper. Just it didn't get as hot as I needed it to get the last time it was in a kiln, and so it came out kind of, you know, the way it cools and how heat determines the color. This as well is kind of a mess from copper smelt. This was a brass faucet, and I'm not sure if it was plated or if that's just a lot of zirconium. Zirconium will turn that color. Paint is in there, so it came out pretty yellow, but we're going to continue to mess with that one. This was from some recovery gold. Same thing with this and that. Those two. This is here, this one, and this one. Recovery electronics gold, which is supposed to be gold-plated copper for the most part. This bar under here and that little cube is bismuth. Same thing with these cubes here. That bar there and those little things, that's aluminum. This here is antimony. Same thing with those coins above it. That coin right there is lead. Same thing with those two cubes. This is a pewter, mainly tin, but it looks like there's some bismuth in there. A little cube of zinc there. That is made out of much of the same components as current American coins, so mainly cupro-nickel. That's copper, obviously copper. And then we have some silver here. The one in the package is actually probably cupro-nickel. We got some alkaline batteries. Also have some lithium batteries. We're not going to be extracting that because that is a hazard. This is nickel. This is tungsten. That's just a little fishing weight made out of tungsten. This is a fake coin, probably chromium, definitely iron because it is magnetic. Titanium. That is certified gold. Underneath it is fake gold plated. And then this is whatever the hell that says, are osmium or osmium coated. And then, of course, carbon. Put the pencil here because the pencil lead in there. The graphite is mainly carbon. And I've got some nitric acid. I also have some hydrochloric acid. I've got some sulfur. I've got some mercury on the way, zinc, magnesium. We're going to start off alloying and seeing, can we replicate properties? Because what makes any metal a metal, you can say two things. Number one, is it pure? And we'll go over how things are tested as being purely, you know, in chemistry, if something is pure, it's one element or one molecule type. And so when we talk about purifying gold, it's talking about getting rid of all the impurities, things that are not gold. But you can purify every metal. But let's take, silver, for example. And we'll take a look at the properties of silver and see if we can't replicate them. I've been doing some bismuth testing this morning. First of all, this is my big bar of bismuth. And that is over, about an inch, a little bit more than an inch thick. If I try, I can't do anything with that. This one, 520 grams. Broke that pretty easily. A friend told me that a job ain't nothing but work. Well, I guess a job that you can do while you're laying down on your couch. Be good. I mean, if I got paid for it. Another thing that I ran into in this research is something called a forked box protein, FOX protein for short. And these proteins are described as having a winged double helix structure, which, I mean, is a pretty specific shape, right? And Hermes carries this caudicus, or, however it's pronounced, whatever, which we still find on amulets and whatnot, and other medical facilities. But these FOX proteins are responsible for things like cellular regeneration, cellular differentiation, and which means they're able to morph the function of cells, to basically direct a cell to be a liver cell or a kidney cell, right? Interestingly enough, Hermes also said to be anthropomorphic, which is a shapeshifter. That's not my goal to reinvent the wheel when it comes to chemistry. I'm not trying to do things that are widely known. I mean, unless it's cool, I want to see a cool reaction. But, we've got chemistry in our everyday lives. And the word chemistry contains the word mystery. And I don't think that all of chemistry's mysteries have been revealed as of yet.